What is up, and welcome back to another episode of the For It Men podcast. This is actually the last episode of season 3, and I am so stoked to be having Martin Cash on the podcast. Martin is one of my good friends, and he's a husband, a songwriter. He is the drummer in the band We the Kingdom, and he also has a I was about to say spike ball. No, I had my perfect intro. He has a 4.879 pickleball rating score, and that is official. And Martin, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
You're so welcome. It was so funny. I texted Gracie yesterday, and I got to just for the sake of this probably could have been done pre-podcast, but I have to just read what she said to you. So I texted her and said, "What is Martin's pickleball rating?" And this is what she said. You're gonna love it. She said, he isn't officially rated, but honestly, he plays between 4.5 and 5. That dude's no joke going pro one day. LOL. So you have the
very
biggest
gracious.
You have the
Very
biggest
gracious.
hype sister-in-law that there is. But I just
Thank
love
you,
it
Gracie.
because I was expecting she was going to say like an exact number, which is what I ended up like texting her. So actually, can you just give me an exact number? But I just love no, he plays between like a 4.5 and a 5.
That's a very large gap. So I appreciate the graciousness there.
Well, no, I've seen you play pickleball one time. You're actually really good. But later in the podcast, I want to talk about spike ball because me and you joked that we could actually enter a tournament, and I really think we could win. You know, you play more
too.
You play more strategically. I just kind of play more dominantly. I just try to spike everything, hence the name of spike ball. And then you try to like place. You try to place ball. So we kind of played two different games, but they end up working out really well together.
That's amazing. We gotta do that at some point. Tournament.
No, we will for sure. Well, man, as I mentioned in the intro, you know, your family has a band, and if you're listening to this and you haven't heard the We the Kingdom, you've probably heard plenty of their songs. Holy Water being, I would say, probably y'all's biggest song. What is that like being in a band with your family, and was that always something that you dreamt about? What are some of the amazing things about it? What are some of the, hurdles that maybe you face just being on the road all the time with your family?
Yeah, bro. I mean, to start off, I'd say, if you are, listening and you work with family, you definitely know that there are the ups and downs, And one thing from the beginning is, we just really wanted to portray that it wasn't this like cakewalk thing. Because I think when you combine family and music, like a band, you hear of like family bands, it kind of has this like hokey, ring to it. Like, oh, they're a family band, whatever. And so honestly, in the beginning, it wasn't really something that we wanted to like let people know, just for fans to kind of figure it out as it came, But yeah, man, it is a huge blessing, and it is a massive lesson in life, to work with people that you grew up with, you have history with. I would say from the beginning that it was definitely not a planned thing or even a dream to like be working together. But we actually ended up walking through a situation together that lasted over a decade. We were part of this church that really went south, and there were just some pretty abusive things going on. And without getting into too much detail, we ended up leaving, and we're just heartbroken. Felt like the foundation that we had been building personally with each other and even with the Lord had just been like ripped out from under us after a decade. And after a couple of years of, just recovering from a thing like that, we actually came together to this Young Life camp, which we've been, doing these camps for years. But this particular year, we were just hurting, and I remember sitting around the hot tub at Sharp Top Cove in Jasper, Georgia, which is like an hour north of Atlanta. And we wrote our first song together as the Five. And without even really knowing it, it was like what propelled the healing to come in the next months and the next years. But yeah, from the beginning, it was never a planned thing. I think the Lord ordained it, because he knew we needed each other to heal from that situation that we had all walked through. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's a journey, and it is absolutely the most fun thing I've been a part of, and at times absolutely the most horrific tension that I've ever been a part of. So,
because like you said, there are so many dynamics to it, because it is, it is family and it is music, but at the end of the day too, it's also like a business, trying to get stuff out there, because there's so many nuanced things, with song credits and with all these other things, like to where there is, so many under layers of like, it is music and it is, touring and stuff, but it's also to some extent running a business. And, a lot of people that have business with their family, it's so many complicated things that just happen up in it, which is just, sometimes can be difficult, but for y'all, it's just been super cool to see, in some sense, up close, but on most of the, on most occasions, just kind of from a peer, just kind of, perspective. But have you,
Totally.
Was music something that you were always drawn to? Because your dad has written, some of the biggest songs in Christian music. Was that always something that you knew that you wanted to kind of pursue from a young age?
Yeah, it's interesting growing up around it. I can remember being 5 years old, and he had a studio that was right next door. It's kind of like the main house, and then a deck breezeway area. And then that was his studio when you walked in. And so as kids, we grew up, sitting in sessions and, banging on instruments and whatnot from a very young age, But I think early on, I was pretty drawn to sports. And I was a big baseball guy. I played for 12 years or something through high school. And that was like the passion. I love sports. I love athletics, just the way that the body moves, and was really intrigued by that from an early age. And definitely, like I said, the music thing was available, but I don't think the bug actually bit until around halfway through high school. I remember, I think it was for Christmas, we got GarageBand on our computer in the downstairs basement, all the kids. It was like this present or whatever. Because I guess there's like a free version, and then you can like pay the premium upgrade or whatever. And we got that one. And it was the first time, I feel like sitting down, it's really just dragging in like pre-recorded loops. So you're not necessarily creating music from nothing, but you're dragging in all these loops and lining them up to create beats and different melodies or whatever. And I feel like that was the first time I remember that original joy for music striking my heart. Like, oh my gosh, this is a new realm, a new portal that I've never really been exposed to in this kind of way, because it was personal. It was like something that I could create that didn't have to do with my dad or didn't have to do with my sister or anyone else, but my personal expression, Yeah. And so I think it was at that point that started the journey of like, what is this? And you're kind of peeling through, the layers for the first time, and just this childlike wonder of like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So
growing up, was your family the kind of family, like, let's say hypothetically, if y'all were going to go sit at like a bonfire, would you just start like spontaneously singing?
Yes,
you would.
Yes, we were that family. Like,
because at the beginning you said not like a hokey pokey thing, and I was like, if I think of like a hokey pokey singing family, it's like you know the scene from I think it's Cheer by the Dozen, when they're like just all by the campfire. You might not, but they're like across.
I don't know it.
They're like across the like lake from each other, whatever, and it's like the two families like singing. They're like, it's like a sing battle kind of thing. You have to see it. It's a great movie. But I just picture like, as like a musical family just sitting around a campfire and just like singing campfire songs. Because my family's not musical at all. Like all we did was ever play sports, and none of us can sing. There's not a single ounce of gifting in that. So I just, if I'm thinking about you and your whole family as musical as y'all are, I picture in my mind just Franny start singing something, and then You start like drumming something on like a wooden bench or something.
Around the fire. That's
Just sitting
amazing.
around the fire. That's just where my mind goes with that.
I love it. That's probably how it's, I mean, like family reunions and stuff. Cause my grandfather, he passed away a few years ago, but he brought music into the family. And so he was like an electric guitar player and taught my dad Johnny Be Good
Yeah.
by Chuck Berry that was his first song. That was my first song I learned on the guitar. There's a video of it somewhere where we all played a recital. Like my dad and brothers were my band, you know? So it was fun.
Would you say if you know the thing that y'all walked through, you kind of mentioned at the beginning, would you know, if y'all didn't really go through that, then music, like you said, kind of brought y'all together. Do you think you still would have pursued something with music? Do you think it would have been worship or, you know, some other kind of music, or would you have maybe kept trying to play baseball, or what do you, if you had to guess, what do you kind of think that would have played out to be?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know that I've thought about that before. I definitely think it if that hadn't happened is what you're asking.
Yeah.
If we hadn't walked through that, I mean, there would have been some part of me that still gravitated towards music, you know, because I think as I continue to age through middle school, high school, whatever, I was like I love math and I loved science, like almost, I guess, left side of the brain or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
And then it was weird, bro. There was a switch, not like overnight, but I remember it like it was overnight in high school, where I just became creative and sort of that right brain, like literally from black and white to color. Like all of a sudden I love English and I love writing, you know? And so I think that went hand in hand with music, you know? So even if we hadn't walked through that together, for whatever switch happened, I think I would have still gravitated towards music, you know, being a creative.
I'm a big fan of ice baths. If you don't already know that, if you've been listening to this podcast and even follow me on social media, you've seen me post a lot about Ice Barrel, and it is a cold therapy training tool that I use almost every day for my recovery, for my inflammation. It just helps me feel better. It's one of the most just like addicting things that I do. You know, there's so many benefits to it with my mood and my recovery and my focus. It even helps with my heart rate variability. It helps activate my nervous system. It also helps even alleviate depression and anxiety. And I've seen all those by doing Ice Barrel, and I can see I can notice the difference when I don't do it, and I can notice the difference when I do it. And it's just one of my favorite things. You know, Ice Barrel, the design of it is so cool and it's so sleek. I have it sitting on my back porch, and it's just sitting upright. I have it in my stand, and it's made with 100% recycled material. It's made in the USA, and it's super durable. It's super compact, and there's a spigot on the bottom to where if I need to drain it, I can drain it, and I just fill it up with however much water I want, however much ice, and it stays cold. And it's perfect because you don't have to keep filling it with water. You don't have to keep buying ice because the Ice Barrel keeps it cold, and you can keep the water in there, and you don't have to drain it with the spigot. I love using it. It's become one of my biggest tools that I've had for fitness as well as just lifestyle, and I love it so much. I love the way it looks as well. And like I said, something else that I love is that you can get it for as little as $90 a month, and it's super portable. And like I said, it drains easily, and you can take it wherever you want, and it does not take up a lot of space. Like I said, it's sitting on my back porch, and that's the perfect spot for it for me. So I worked with Ice Barrel to help get you $125 off so that you can try it out and see if you love it as much as I do. I threw a link in the show notes, and you'll be seeing me share more on social media too. You can go to icebarrel.com/Christian and use code Christian to get $125 off. Ice Barrel offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Again, that's icebarrel.com/Christian and use code Christian to get $125 off. Get colder, feel better, and let me know what y'all think. That's awesome. How do you feel like, because I've never really asked a person in worship this question. Do you ever feel like, you know, because obviously y'all tour so many different places and so many cities. Y'all just finished Winter Gym, right? That was the big tour y'all just finished.
Yep.
Yeah. So like 40 something cities. How do you ever feel like that tension of, you know, because like I said, you played the drums for your family's band. Do you ever like get, you know, how do you let yourself worship freely while also still needing to be on the tune. Because if the drummer messes up, it's kind of obvious. I feel like maybe I'm wrong when I say that.
Yeah.
But how do you let yourself, when you do something so often and a ton of people are there watching, how do you not be in your head of making sure you don't mess up, but also allowing yourself to worship, because y'all are singing worship music, and this is people are coming to hear y'all to have an experience with God. So how do you kind of separate the two, but also kind of conjoin them, if that makes sense?
Totally. I actually had an experience in high school when I first kind of started to play. I had this like Bible study group of just some high school buddies and friends. We get together on the weekends and just worship, and someone might talk or share a message or whatever. And I remember one particular weekend we were trying to do like just a worship night, and we had this space that a church let us use, and I was playing on the kit. And I remember like very vividly through the set. It was one specific moment. It wasn't the whole time, but almost like this third person feeling where you kind of leave yourself and you feel like you're just viewing yourself play in worship. And it was literally like the Holy Spirit overtook playing for like 30 seconds. And I was just watching him like, here, let me show you how to worship and play together, and I've never had a moment like that in addition to that first one, but I've always tried to like chase it, like
That's
if
cool.
I could get back to that feeling of, it feels like he is literally the one playing and I'm just watching, that'd be amazing. And I think there's a really beautiful part of that. And then there's also a skewed part of that where I think somehow in growing up in childhood, I believed worship to be, you get lost. You're not focused or locked in on your craft if you're leading necessarily. You just need to get lost in the spirit, almost like you're taken to heaven or another realm, which I think there are worship, experiences that are very much like that. But I think one thing I'm learning is like, just because you're focused on keeping the groove or, the performance side of what you're doing, or, a certain fill that you kind of want to go after, that doesn't mean it's not worship. You can still be locked in and focus on your craft. And the fact that God gave you that gift means that you're using it for him, and it's still worship, whether you're focused, locked in, very present, or kind of lost and taken, to a heavenly place. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. That's so cool.
I think I'm learning to do the second, the latter. Yeah.
Because like I said, I know nothing about music. I know what I like and what I don't like, but I know nothing about keys or like, if it's in this key, then this is down key or whatever. Do you ever, because I feel like I've heard people say this in the past. Do you ever wrestle with like, if you were, let's say you're at like I don't want to say concert or like a worship gathering or something, like with a musical brain, like let's say they're in an off key, or if someone messes up, like, can you ever get like hyper fixated on something like that? And does that make sense? If you're like worshiping and it's like, oh, he missed that key or something like that.
Oh yeah. It can definitely be a speed bump for sure. But then, like, to kind of piggyback off of what I said before, like watching someone in their craft and killing it, even if they have one fluke or one mess up moment, like I'm watching them enter into worship, and somehow that, like, I may not be like this, I may be like watching them, my eyes are on them, but my heart is on God, watching God worship through them, if that makes sense. But there are a lot of times, you're a critic in that scenario, it's like, this is what I do for a living. And so if I'm watching you play a song, I'm going to critique it, naturally, so trying to keep that balance of like, it's not bad to be a student and to critique and learn from things, but in a worship setting, that's where you want your mind to be also.
Like I said, y'all just finished how many cities was Winter Jam again? 40 what?
It was booked for 40. We had one show cancel, so 39.
So 39.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you kind of balance, because doing a 39 city tour is crazy. How do you feel like you balance that? Life can be so crazy, but then it can also not be when you're back home in Nashville and you're playing pickleball and you're playing, you're just kind of chilling. How do you feel like, well, not that you're chilling, obviously you're working on a new record and everything. You're still busy, but you're not like, in the middle of nowhere in Kansas or something, whatever. How do you feel like you kind of adjust to like, it's so crazy, but then also being so not as crazy, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I think initially, and honestly, man, we haven't been touring that long, but initially when we were first started, the road life, I think I just accepted it as very like, when you hop on the bus, and you've been on a bus before, it's like Narnia or something.
Yeah.
Like you're walking through this wardrobe or whatever that takes you to a new universe, and the time literally is different. It feels different. And so I think I just accepted it as like, okay, these are two different worlds. And when I get home, I know I'm expecting that punch in the face, on Monday morning or whatever. Like
not from Sarah, but from
not from Sarah, from life, from reality.
From life.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, I think that was my perspective at first, and there's definitely still some side of that, But I've learned if you can give yourself some like lead up time. So instead of like Sunday night, we're typically gone Wednesday night through Sunday night, back Monday morning. Mm-hmm. And so instead of preparing your mind to get back after you play this show Sunday or even Monday morning, the last 30 minutes in, to start thinking about it on Sunday, like afternoon, you kind of prepare, okay, I'm transitioning back so that it's not such an abrupt transition. I've felt that really helps. And then on Wednesdays, when you're about to leave, you don't want to go too much to that world, because then you're not present for, Sarah, for your wife, for family, friends, whatever. But to start at least thinking like, okay, I'm going to be leaving. I need to get my mind in this road life kind of system again. So yeah, I'm still like figuring out the intricacies of that, but it's really helped.
How much did y'all tour before you and Sarah got married? Have you toured more before or after that?
I would say it's been roughly the same, amount,
so far,
give or take. Like we met and dated once I had already been touring. So it's nothing new to us, which feels really nice because we kind of built our flow around the road.
Has that been what kind of adjustments that been from, if you tour, then you come home and you're single, you kind of have, I don't want to say do whatever you want, but you kind of had more, I guess, maybe freedom in that versus now having more of like a stability when you come home, having a house, having a wife, having, your own kind of family.
It's 100% better.
Yeah.
Dude, I would destroy myself as the single dude coming, because you have no responsibilities. So you're still staying up, till 4 or 5 a.m. watching Netflix and whatnot, just enjoying life. But there is a beauty to having someone else that kind of keeps you in check, because you almost think, gosh, I've been hitting it real hard on the road, working endless hours, and you almost start to form this mentality of like, oh, I deserve to be that couch potato, or maybe not deserve, it's like I need it to kind of refuel or whatnot. And there's definitely some of that still for sure, but to do it with someone else so that you don't go to a dark place or get like lonely and isolated, is incredible. I mean, it's the greatest gift that I didn't even think to ask for, but God was just like, I think I'm going to hook you up right here. Like, this is for you.
I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day, and I started taking it because I wanted better gut health. I wanted a stronger immune system, and I even just wanted increased energy in the morning. Sometimes when I wake up, coffee's not the first thing I want to go to, and I wanted something that I thought tasted delicious, with which AG1 tastes incredible. And I wanted something that could give me that energy that I need in the mornings before I go work out or just whatever I'm doing. Even if I'm not working out, I still just love taking it to start my day. And like I said, it tastes delicious, and there's so many huge benefits of it. My body craves it in the mornings, and I love the health benefits that it gives me. And what I love about AG1 is that it makes me feel like I'm actually doing something good for my body. I know that oftentimes I cannot have the healthiest eating habits, and mixing in some AG1 just feels like I'm giving my body some of the nutrition that I know that it craves. And like I said, it tastes delicious, and I love incorporating it into my routine and just making a habit out of it to increase my health throughout the day. And AG1 was designed with ease in mind so that you can live healthier and better without having to do a lot. It's seriously the healthiest thing that you can do in just under a minute. And with every scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens that have huge benefits like gut and mood support, boosted energy. It is even great for skin, hair, and nails. It's just high-quality stuff that's good for you. And with all those benefits, that's what made me start telling people about it. I told the Duck Garden guys about it, and you've heard me talk about John David. He's taking it now. And my neighbor, Brian, who we play rec league basketball together, I started talking to him about it because I feel like it gives me the energy that I would need, whether it's for any kind of sports or even just for working out. He loves to work out too. And he started taking it because he saw the edge that it was giving me in the gym. And if you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase, which the travel packs by AG1 are my favorite part about their product. Go to athleticgreens.com/Huff. That's athleticgreens.com/Huff. Go check it out. Well, if you're listening to this, and we've talked about Sarah a lot, Sarah's Martin's wife. Y'all been married for about 1.5 years now, right? December of
21.
Was it December? Yeah, December 21.
Yeah.
It's about 1.5 years, and y'all dated for, several months before that. What do you, for all those people listening, how did you pursue her? And two, Sarah's older than you. Did that ever intimidate you, early on, you pursuing? Because Sadie's older than me, but she's only 1 year older than you. But I know Sarah's a couple years older than you. Did that ever intimidate you from the onset? And how did you, pursue her while touring? She owns her own business. Her life is busy. What was the kind of origin of all that?
Yeah. So we became friends in like this friend group, kind of over quarantine phase for like almost a year, I want to say. We met on like Ultimate Frisbee field. And that's where I met a lot of my good buddies now. And for some reason, we're just all kind of drawn to each other. We started getting together on the weekends and playing ping pong and having these really meaningful conversations with each other that really played a huge part in kind of changing my life and kind of reshifting some mentalities that I had just, been prone to believe due to the abuse that I had talked about, in the church or whatever. And, one night in particular, I'd shared a lot about like, man, I've had some hurt and, skewed mentalities with the church. I'd said that a lot. Yeah. And Sarah kind of picked up on it, it was like, what is that about? Like, I'd love to hear more of what you mean by that if you're willing to share. And so we ended up getting together just around a fire. That was the first one-on-one kind of experience that we had. And it was really sweet, man, because it just felt very like best friends who hadn't become best friends yet, but cool. It started from a friendship place. And even that, like you asked the age thing, I think because I had viewed her as like a friend in my life who was older. And so like not too much older, but like enough to have more wisdom than I did, just by the law of like age and time. I had viewed her more like, I don't know if we would ever date because she is older, and that wasn't like a thing that I come up with. Like, I will never date anyone older than me. It was just like, you kind of peg them in that category as like, she'll be my friend. And
but only from you, because you're also thinking like she probably wouldn't want to date me because I'm a lot younger.
yes, totally.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's like,
It's
there's
two-sided
there's
for sure.
two-sided for sure.
But yeah, man, after that night, I think having shared that first one-on-one experience being like a safe place where I could really open up about some hurtful things without allowing her to come in too much. I was still, on my guard, rightfully so, because once you start that dating process, you start to form ties with each other that if for some reason it didn't end up working out, you could potentially regret those emotional ties, like, gosh, maybe I gave too much, or maybe it was too soon or whatever. And so I was still careful, but for some reason I just felt that peace, of God, like this is a woman that you can trust and she's safe. And I didn't get that, like, this is who you're going to marry, like God voice, initially. But it was just that, like, keep going, keep trusting the process of like hanging out together and building this thing and watch what I'm going to do. But dude, initially, like that age thing did it was like a speed bump for me, like, wow, this is something that I'm going to have to get over mentally. And we ended up talking about it not shortly after. And I was just straight up honest, like, I've always thought of you as kind of this older, not too much older, but like older friend. And now I kind of like have feelings for you. And so, what are you feeling about it? Am I like too young or whatever? And it was a really beautiful conversation of like, that there is like some kind of rule-ish age-wise, like where you want to be. But then depending on the person, those rules are bent and it becomes something else other than the age. It becomes about like the friendship and I don't know, I guess kind of what you guys actually mean to each other. So anyway, I feel like I'm rambling, but
no, you're great.
After that conversation, we didn't talk about it again. It wasn't like an issue.
Yeah. Because the age thing is so interesting because, like, at 4 years ago, whatever, or however long y'all have known each other, it might seem like, a big deal. But then 20, 30 years down the road, it's like they're just two numbers that are, they're still super similar,
Yes, totally.
It's not like it's, she's 60 and you're 40.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
100%. Yeah.
Just a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because it's so interesting. It's like, if you're 19 and then 23, 24, whatever, it seems weird. But then when you're 60 and 55, 56, it doesn't, like,
gosh, that's so true.
They're just two numbers. You know, it's weird how numbers and stuff do that. Well, I want you to talk because, it's you and Sarah's story is really cool, and y'all dated really well, and I want to kind of share on how you feel like you date well, and share a little bit about some of y'all's craziest dates, because I know that y'all had some epic date stories.
I mean, they were epic for us. I don't know, listeners might hear it and be like, what? This is so lame, but it was super fun.
No one's gonna think you're a tool. No one's gonna think that.
Yeah, man. I think one thing that really helped from the beginning is when we kind of decided, like, we would love to do this thing and kind of move forward with dating, whatever that looks like specifically. Yeah. I remember it was one morning before she was about to go to the beach with some girlfriends. And I just felt like it was important to clarify, I could kind of judge based on how we both lived our lives and treated other people, but just to like that over communication thing, like, just so Sarah, like, I'm not a game player and I never have been like good at it, for one, just these games people play, like not texting them back initially, or like trying to
manipulating.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, it can be fun and friendly or whatever. I just sucked at it. Like, I was not, the one to whatever, be good at it. So I was like, anything that I say or do, like, I'm going to do my best to just be up front, and like, because it's not my personality, I'm not going to wait to text you back just to like, do that play hard to get thing or whatever. Like, I'm going to text you back because you're my friend and I love talking with you and I want to hear back from you, And so I think saying that and putting that out in the open, it just allowed for like the natural response of dating to be purer and clearer, because a lot of the times we can get wrapped up in that, like, I called them, they haven't called me back yet, or I said this certain phrase of affection and they haven't like mimicked that back yet. Like, what's going on? So just, it's kind of like a duh, yeah, you should do that or whatever. But it really set us up well. Just that, like, no games. Like, I'm not playing games. I'm gonna be super upfront, super honest.
Because that's even easy for us. Like, like you just said that, even if that's not your personality, as men, and I think even just as people, like, we can psychoanalyze so many things. Where one day, if you feel like she's doing it to you, you're like, well, maybe should I do it? Because because you're like, if it's like 5 hours later and she texts me back, and then I text her back within like a minute.
Yes.
Then it's just like, that's just kind of weird,
right.
So like, even getting to where it's like, no, I'm going to still be genuine and upfront and honest. Because it's like, if I get in my head of, are you playing a game with me or whatever? Like, should I play it back? Or if you text me goodnight, should I just not read it and then text you back in the morning and say I fell asleep when I really didn't? Like, there's so many like little things like that we can do that are just, they really are just stupid.
Yeah.
Honestly. But yeah, I mean, I remember that with Sadie, like when we first started talking, I'm like, I'm not trying to brag when I say this. I'm just like the best at answering my phone. Like, I never, if I ever don't text you back, it's because I don't want to text you back.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, hey, I'm sorry. I missed your text and your 2 calls. And, I saw it. I just didn't call you back or text you back. Cause I'm not always on my phone, but it's always on and near me. And I'm just like, that's just my personality. Like, if I see it, I'm going to text you back. But I remember at the very beginning, I was kind of the same way. I like, in the past, I had kind of played games because I was just a douche. But when me and Sadie met, I wasn't anymore. I was actually pursuing God, and I was so removed from like the playing games and like playing hard to get and like trying to be cool with stuff that, I just was, like you said, just, this is gonna be the way I pursue you. But then if it was the same, if like she didn't text me back for a day or something, I would be like, okay, like, well, whenever she texts me back, I at least have to wait like a couple hours to respond or something. Cause it's like, cause there's always that one person that like you can wait like a week to text back.
Right.
And then within 30 seconds, they text you back. Then it's like, do I do the same thing again? Like, do I wait another week?
Right.
Like,
gosh,
how do you kind of do that? But I do want you to share one of y'all's crazy date stories, though.
Yeah, I mean, probably, I'm not sure if it's not bad, but afterwards we're like, man, I wonder if that was like illegal or
Legal?
like trespassing or whatever. But we live in a town called Franklin, which is like 30 minutes ish south of Nashville, Tennessee. And every year at Christmas, they put up this massive, like, maybe like 40 feet, maybe 50. It's huge. It's Christmas tree. And the like diameter or whatever is probably like 10 feet or whatever. So, I'm looking at it one day and thinking like, there's definitely a way that 2 people can fit inside of the inside of it. And it's all like lit up at night and like freaking the most magical thing you've seen. And so
it's a beautiful tree.
It's awesome. One night we, got a cheese board together and champagne or white wine or something. And, we packed a little bag and there's like this like tiny hole, super tiny to like enter that the electricians can go in if a light burns out or whatever. And so somehow we, were able to get through it with like this massive bag with our like cheese and champagne or whatever. And we get inside and have blankets, spread it out, whatever, and have, this cheese board, and we're talking, laughing, having the best time. And you can kind of see like, there's enough cracks and holes through the tree where you can see like cars driving around and people, whatever. And this is probably like midnight or 1 a.m., later, so that like people wouldn't just see us like,
we
army crawling.
Main Street's so crowded. Yeah.
Oh, it's super crowded.
It wasn't 7 p.m.
Yes, exactly. But we kind of see this car like circling the tree like 2 or 3 times, which around a square, if you're not lost, that's like weird, And so we kind of immediately like lay down so that we were hidden or whatever, and thought we heard someone get out and walk around or whatever. And it was for sure a policeman, because we saw him get back in. And when the car drove off, we saw like, Franklin police on the side. And so it wouldn't have been, anything worse than like, hey, could you please leave, whatever.
Yeah.
But we were like shaking physically. Like, if we get caught, what's going to happen? We're going to pay a fine. Like, this is going to be
probably
brutal.
why I got out. We probably saw the Christmas tree. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's no wind. And it's just like,
what is happening?
Subtly shaking.
That's funny. So it started out great and still ended great. We were just nervous as all get out.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool. I mean, me and you both got married super young. We all got married super young. Me, you, Sadie, and Sarah. What do you feel like? How do you feel like your relationship with God has changed since meeting Sarah? Doing the whole engagement thing, now getting married for 1.5 years. How do you feel like your relationship with God has kind of changed since meeting your wife?
The first thing that comes to mind, bro, is simple. I mean, the simplest that it could be, but you hear all your life, at least growing up, with faith in our home, you hear like, God loves you, God cares about you. And I think there were definitely moments where I felt that as like an individual before Sarah, like, gosh, I can see that. I know what people are talking about when they say something like that because of a moment like I'm experiencing right now, whatever the moment was, But honestly, not many. And I think, I don't know if this is a guy thing or whatever, but you kind of feel like it's up to you in a relationship maybe to like be the pursuer, and we're like conquerors, And so maybe it's like up to us to generate like romantic things, and we're always like looking out for our lady and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think as a dude, it was always tough to really understand the love of God for me, like that intimate kind of lover love that he has for us dudes. And that might sound weird to say, but he has intimate love for us, And I think I didn't know what that was until Sarah. And that's something that she's really allowed me to see, is like the same way that she, loves me for the crazy, messy person that I am. Like, that is how Christ not only loves the church, but loves me as an individual, like he's in love with me. And I didn't really understand, like, you're not really in love with anything before your wife, or maybe you shouldn't be, maybe you're in love with like sports or whatever, different kind of love. But when you get married and you experience that, it just opened up this whole different side to God that I honestly knew existed. I just hadn't experienced it before.
Yeah. We obviously love, the two of y'all so much, and y'all's relationship is so cool. And even just, I'm always like, if it's before a meal or something, it's, if we pray before a meal, we obviously pray most of the time, unless I'm like super hungry, which I shouldn't probably say that. But I love, before a meal, like if you pray before a meal, it's always so, just beautiful and articulate, and it's by the time it's over, the food's probably getting cold.
You gotta put it in the microwave.
Completely kidding.
That's amazing.
But no, I mean it's really cool. Even at the beginning, because how old are you? I'm 24.
I'm 23.
You're 22. 23.
Yeah.
23. I mean, we're basically the same age. But when you and Sarah first started, hanging out and dating, you were 20, and even from I say from such a young age, from such a young age, it was 3 years ago, but you were so like wise, and just hearing you talk, it's like so articulate, so like there's so much wisdom, and that comes from you knowing God, and even just so much stuff that Sarah's brought out of you from that, and even from the church hurt that y'all went through. It's just it's super cool to see like how two really are better than one, and y'all are a perfect example of that.
Thank you, bro. That's really kind. Really kind.
Yeah, man. Well, our podcast is talking about physical training, and something else that I love about you, you might not like to work out as much as I do, but you love games, you love activities, you love sports, and you are so cool, because if I'm going to play a sport, it's like, play rec league basketball, church league softball, flag football, whatever. But you could play all those things, but you also love, like kickball and ultimate frisbee and ping pong and spike ball and pickleball, like all these like fun games that maybe you thought people didn't play past like fifth grade recess, and you're like a professional at them.
That's funny.
So even that verse, because I think sometimes physical training is of some value. It's not only just going in the gym and training. It's like you're getting in good shape playing pickleball a couple hours a day, or playing ultimate frisbee and running up and down a football field. So I say that to say, like, your love of sports, how do you how do you still cultivate that? Being married, being touring, just being a busy and hectic lifestyle. How do you feel like you still make time just for some of those passions and hobbies that you still have?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you mentioned pickleball. It's a funny name, dude, but it is so fun.
It's so much fun.
It is so fun. And I think recently, at least for Sarah and I, like, she's really into it as well. And so it's actually been a super just fun, like, connection activity that you can do. Cause, having limited time at home, I try not to, like, all right, I'm going to go, out for the night. I'll be back, but then I'm leaving the next night. So to leave Sarah for one night just for personal time feels, first of all, I don't want to do it, because having limited time together, you want to use as much of that together, but then I also think it's really important to have personal time that is private, but it's not. I think a lot of times people think that's like secretive, it's not secretive time. It's just private, personal. I'm pouring into my individual well, so that when we come together as a couple and she's trying to, draw, ultimately she's drawing from the Lord, but you draw from people's wells. That's how a relationship works. And if mine is dry, that is, basically screwing her. Like that's unfair, So I think it's equally as important to pour into that individual time. And so I've found ways to do that, at least, on the road and at home. But pickleball is like a massive, like, outlet for me, where you just go sweat, and it's very strategic and, athletic, obviously, but more so than like I'm a huge competitor. I'm very competitive and love all that stuff. But I found that if the priority can be, this is an outlet, whether that's like to blow off steam or even just have fun, I think, at least for me, I haven't focused a ton on what is actually life-giving and joyful and fun, because I think when you're young, you're so focused on the grind sometimes that can distract you from, like, man, sometimes I need to just do things that are thoughtless and mindless, whether that's TV or sports or whatever. I don't know if this is something you struggle with, but young people, especially young men, the lie is, if you don't work as hard as you possibly can now, then you might fail yourself, or even worse, like your family, financially or whatever it is later in life, So I'm really trying to, like, take time to do non-work things. And that's tough because I freaking love my job. I love music, and it is also a hobby, but it is also like how I make money,
Yeah, how you provide.
Yeah. So how do you find other things outside of that? And for some reason, dude, like you said, I've always been drawn to the like weird ancillary sports. Like I love disc golf too. I don't know if you've ever played that, but it's like one of those. It's
I'm
hugely
so not
popular.
accurate with the frisbee.
Oh yeah, those things are tough, but once you get the basic whatever, it's a lot of fun. So
man, well, I want to end talking about for those listening, especially, you guys are working on a new record. Can you kind of talk a little bit about how that's been, what people listening can expect from it, and what the heartbeat kind of it is?
Yeah, bro. I think I'll start by saying, like, when we made our first record, you don't have anything to go by. There is no outline of like what people like or the sounds that they enjoy hearing from you as a band. It's your introduction to the world, And so I think you're less focused on like pleasing the crowd and more focused on like, we're just putting out what we love to make. And you kind of cross your fingers like, man, if this connected, that'd be great. And if it didn't, we'll reconvene, And for the second record, I think because the first one connected for whatever reason with people, all of a sudden you're super in your head. Like, okay, let's try to copy and mimic the first record as much as we can, like making sure we have the next Holy Water kind of song or the next God So Loved or whatever. Like we need a worship kind of tune. We need a rock out kind of edgy, whatever. And I think that led to a massive amount of insecurity because all of a sudden you're just writing to please and it becomes commercial and it becomes about, what is going to go number one on the radio and what is going to whatever. You just get lost. And so I think what's exciting about this third record is we've recognized that insecurity and we're learning how to lose it and come back to the like childlike, wild, you're just not thinking about what you're creating. You're just creating, and people pick up on that joy. I really believe. So that's one thing that I'm super pumped about. And the other thing I'll say real quick is, our whole vision from the start has been definitely to pour into like the church and to worshipers. Like that's where we come from. But another part of it has also been to pour in and reach out to the people that are outside of the walls of church and would maybe never find themselves in like a church pew for whatever reason. Maybe it's, they've been burned by the church before, or someone told them about something about Jesus that wasn't true, but all of a sudden they believe it now. And so to reach kind of like, I don't know, the outsiders or the rest of the world with our music, and whether that's like a mainstream kind of crossover thing where we have a song, Lord willing, that could kind of do both, or whether that's going to play some festivals and fairs or hop on a tour that's like a non-Christian tour and go minister in that world and kind of speak their language, but ultimately share the message of the gospel would be like the biggest dream and like hope for our band. So we're really believing this record could be that, just in the way that we're writing it, trying not to be too we're throwing Jesus in your face and trying to stuff the gospel down your throat, and a little more like, how would a drug addict say this or experience the gospel, or how would whatever someone that's committed adultery, or more so like speaking the language of the world rather than like Christianese, which a lot of the times we can do that, man, in our communities. Like we just say phrases that I don't even think we know what they mean, but it's just like, oh, shoot, don't. People are saying this in church. Like maybe we should say it, but it's like, what is actually behind that? Like, why don't we talk like regular humans rather than create this community that's it can potentially be very exclusive. That's why people have a hard time finding themselves in church on Sunday, because sometimes it feels cliquey. And I'm not saying it's all churches, but just a heart check of like, are we actually inviting the world in like Jesus did.
I mean, that's one of the dangerous places to be, right? Where you get to a place and you think you got it all figured out, and you're not struggling with anything. And
Right.
I mean, those are the people that I don't want to be around. So,
Right.
I want to be around the people that are actually genuine and authentic. And if you ask them how you're doing, they're not just going to say, "I'm doing great," but your life's actually falling apart.
Right.
So, let's talk about that. Yeah. I mean, I think the more we can steer away from the Christianese and actually how do we relate to the world? I mean, we're in the world, but we're not of the world, right? So what does that mean? How do we relate to people that might actually listen to this and not just please the small niche that we feel like we need to please, right?
Totally.
So,
that's good, bro.
that's awesome, man. Well, when is that going to come out?
We're talking, the hope would be spring of 24. Definitely
Sweet.
some point next year. But the hope would be, we're actually taking off this fall to focus on it. And so if we could put it out by spring, that would be amazing.
That's awesome, man. Martin, dude, well, thank you so much for joining me. If you next time you see us together, if you're watching this, hopefully it'll be with a gold medal around our neck for Spikeball champions.
Let's go. Let's
go.
awesome.
We got it.
Heck yeah.
We got it. Love you, brother.
Love you, bro. Thank you so much.